Words are powerful things. They've been used throughout history as weapons and as building blocks. They unite and they destroy. I love words. I love the way they look, I love the way they feel, the way they sound, and I love the effect that they can have on people. And that's not such a surprising thing. I mean, I'm a spoken word poet. And I'm a public speaking coach. So words are literally my art and expression, and they're my career. In my work, one of the most common things that people come to me and say is that they're afraid of public speaking. Again, that's not such a surprising thing either, because most people class public speaking as a fear greater than their fear of death. Just to reframe that for a second, to me, public speaking means speaking to anybody other than myself. And actually, sometimes it means speaking to myself as well. Now, the more I've worked with these people and the more I've worked with myself, I've begun to realize that most people aren't afraid of speaking. And most people actually aren't afraid of public either. What they're afraid of is being seen. What if I speak and they see me? What if I speak and they don't like what they see? What if I speak and I don't like what I see? Even though I've been on stage for over 20 years, I still confront these thoughts all the time. Every time I hit a new audience, in fact, I confront these thoughts. So what keeps me getting up here? What keeps me getting up on stages and sharing my words? My purpose. I ask myself, why do you do what you do? Well, I write to connect with myself, to get whatever's going on in here or up here out and onto a page so I can see it. And I speak to connect with the world, to get whatever's going on in here and up here out so others can see it. I mean, that's kind of why we all speak, right? To get whatever's in here out, to make a connection. It could be said that we're pretty lucky. I mean, we live in what is considered to be the most connected time in history. I mean, I can literally have a thought right now, and within seconds have somebody on the other side of the world to think the same thing just by sending them a message. I also live in closer proximity to more people now than I've ever had the opportunity to do so in the past. However, I think I would argue that maybe we live in the most disconnected time in history. All you have to do is to look at the rates of depression, of anxiety, of suicide, and addiction to see that. I mean, there's heaps of studies and researches and TED Talks and TEDx Talks about exactly that, the link of these states of experience that we have as humans these days and how they link to feelings of disconnection and isolation. 5 years ago, when I arrived in Australia, I was just me, my backpack, and my boyfriend. And I was on a big adventure. Within 2 months, the relationship had broken down. And suddenly, I was thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles away from home, away from everybody that I loved and everything that I knew to be familiar, facing that heart-wrenching sensation of being rejected by somebody that you love. I was hungering for connection. So I came to Melbourne and I decided to run an event. It was to be a one-off evening of women's spoken word and poetry. I called it Mother Tongue, and I expected maybe 11 people to come because I didn't really know anybody. That night we had 75 people in that room, of all genders. That event's been running monthly ever since. That's 5 years now. And every month we get between 50 and 80 people in that audience. And every month on stage, 10 women get up on that stage and they share their stories. They share stories of depression, of rape, of abuse, of what it is to fall in love, to have dreams and visions and aspirations. These are courageous women. And these are women, all kinds of women. What's so great about Mother Tongue for me is it creates a platform for every facet of what it is to be woman. So we get women from all backgrounds, we get women of all body shapes, we get women of all ages. We've had 12-year-olds and 60 to 70-year-old women up on that stage before speaking their truths. We've had straight women, we've had queer women, we've had trans women. We get such a fantastic view on that stage of what it is, the experience of what it is to be a woman. And some of them have never spoken on stage before. Others are professionals. Either way, they're all courageous women. And the reason I use the word courage, and I want to just explain this for you for a minute, because courage and bravery get used as words quite interchangeably quite a lot. And for me, they're very different things. So for me to know that you understand what I'm saying, I'm going to just define what those two words mean for me. For me, when I say courage, I use the definition brought forward by Brené Brown in her TED talk, The Power of Vulnerability. And in that talk, what she does is take the word courage and brings it back through its etymology to its root word, cor in Latin, which means heart. And from her research, what she says is that courage means to tell the story of yourself with your whole heart. Now, as a poet, you cannot imagine how juicy that definition is to me. To tell the story of yourself with your whole heart. But, as is my nature and my love of words, I then was confronted with needing to know what bravery meant. So I looked it up. Bravery comes from the word bravado. And bravado means to give a face of fearlessness. That means no matter what's going on in here, no matter how afraid, no matter how isolated, no matter how alone we feel, we hold a face of fearlessness. And that's an incredible tool. It's so powerful in times when our lives perhaps are in danger and we need to hide our fear to be able to show our strength. However, it's not a tool to live by. For me, these women who get up on this stage are courageous women. They stand up there and they tell the story of themselves with their whole heart. And when I see these women on this stage, I see three things happen every single month. The first is that no matter what that woman looks like, no matter where she comes from, what body she has, or what story she's telling, me as an audience member, I get to see myself in her. I get the opportunity to see myself in another human being and feel connected, to feel connection. And then when she gets off the stage, I have another opportunity to see myself in her again whenever I see her. And what I like to hope is that anytime I see another woman that reminds me of her, I get the opportunity to see myself in her too. What kind of a world would we be living in if we were actually seeing ourselves in each other? I don't think we'd be able to do the things that we are doing to each other, that we are doing to each other all over the world and in this country, if we were actually seeing ourselves in each other. The second thing that I see happening on that stage and in that room is when that woman gets up on that stage and tells her story and I see myself in her, I get permission. In a society where I am brought up to pit myself against other women, to pitch myself, to compare, to put other women down or above me, not only do I see myself in her, but I get permission. For example, if a woman gets up on that stage and she's a single mother, I get permission to tell my story of what it is to be a single mother in this world. I'm like, my story's relevant, it's worthy. If a woman gets up there and she's a queer woman, I get the opportunity to be, I have permission, my story is worthy. I can tell my story, I can live my story. I have permission to exist in the story of who I am, even more fully in this world. And what a gift that is. And I look around the room, and it's not just me. It's every other person in that room. I see them feeling that permission to be themselves more. The third thing that I see happening up on that stage is that that woman who stands there and tells her story, that courageous woman. And I mean, like I said, some of these women, they've never spoken on a stage before. In fact, some of them have never even shared that story to their closest friend. And they're up on that stage. I've had women on that stage wearing bands on their wrists from institutions that they left hours earlier after trying to kill themselves. And they are standing on that stage, alive, telling their stories. And when they walk off that stage, they are lighter. Something has lifted. There is connection. That's why they come up on that stage, for connection. And they go home. And they don't just go home, they come back. And they sit in that audience and they witness other women up there and they get more permission and they get more permission to be themselves. And over the years, over the months, I see them get back up on that stage and their stories turn from stories of trauma and survival into stories of empowerment and blossoming. It's an incredible thing to watch. And this stuff doesn't just exist on the Mother Tongue stage. I've had the pleasure of attending and performing at events all over this world where I see spoken word artists getting up and sharing their stories. And what's so incredible about spoken word as an art form is it does something pretty profound. It takes something like literature and poetry, which once only belonged to the highly educated and the elite, and it puts it firmly in the hands and the mouths and the hearts of the folk, of the people, of voices that normally are not heard and not listened to. It gives it to people who identify as LGBTQI and plus. It gives it to people of color. It gives it to women. It gives it to men who are suffering from isolation and depression. It gives it to people who don't feel like they can share their story and gives them a platform to speak. It gives permission. So how do we take this off the stage? How do we take it into our lives? Like I said, to me, public speaking is speaking to anybody other than ourselves, and sometimes it's speaking to ourselves as well, right? So take that opportunity. In a world built on bravery, be courageous. In a disconnected world, choose courage. You are always given that opportunity to connect. So tell the story of yourself with your whole heart. Share who you are. Because you never know who is listening. And your words and your story and your truth may well just give somebody else the permission to live another day. And I think that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you. On that note, as I have a few minutes left, I would like to offer you a poem. Would you like to hear one?
Yeah!
She was 14. She was born with dreams of stardom, and she'd already mastered the art of slalom to dodge the bullets thrown by the harsh tongues of adolescence. Her spirit pearlescent. Her mind sharp with a curious heart. She was the perfect target for it. She danced. She spent her days in trance with the flickering of unreachable stars. They called her Poppy. Spent their days trying to cut her down. Eventually they didn't miss, they hit, she split down the center, caught in the rift between reality and dreams. She fell and hit the ground. No longer she danced. Spent her days in trance with visions of soaring high and studying grass. She walked smoke-paved paths. They called her Poppy, so she'd fall on her ass. But her roots were deep. So she took to the street where her wit could save her from defeat. Her arm stretched, her thumb took chart the path. Her backpack carried heavy maps that carved their mark upon her heart. She touched the stars, the fallen ones, just like her, when needles and smoke rings had become the cure. All stretched on cardboard beds, all lost and found in the heart and the head, all called Poppy, just like her. Each one cut before their prime, symptoms of a society that isn't quite right. I mean, really, when did it become such a crime to shine? Poppy, she stared into the eyes of fallen flowers, all doped up on reasons to escape, and realized that her fate just wasn't headed that way. Her demise hadn't begun. Her rise was on its way, and she followed with her eyes as the sun continued every day. You see, Poppy wasn't her name. She was born a different seed. But Poppy she became when names get thrown by fear and greed. Yes, she was tall. Yes, she was bright. And others afraid tried to smother her light, but her heart was not blood red. It was golden, like the sun. And she followed its movement from the moment it rose until it was done. She left those streets with a knowing that every fallen flower is a curse, that this world will become infertile if it keeps crushing all its girls. She let her back stand up straight, let her petals unfurl. She would claim back her own name. She would inspire all the world. You see, she is not a poppy. She never has been. She is a sunflower growing, and she is full of ripening seeds. And the thing about a sunflower that's so special, you see, is it's impossible to just pass one by without taking a moment to dream. You know, like, oh, well, if I had a garden, or maybe when I get back home, or maybe I'll plant sunflowers just so I can watch them grow. And so she lives like this, leaving in her path a trail of scattered sunflower seeds and a field of blooming hearts, each rising with each other to see how bright they can become, each turning to each other, each made of earth and sun. And the truth of this story, the truth, is that every single one of us in this room, whether we're a poppy or a sunflower, we all deserve the right to bloom. Thank you.